CC Building Office. Qianru, this is your office. From now on, you will be my subordinate. You can ask me anything. At this time, Su Qianru suddenly saw that there was another office next to hers. She asked curiously, whose office is that? Another perfumer who joined the company today was also mentored by me. Li Yao is the perfume director of CC. Li Yao personally took care of Su Qianru as soon as she came in, which shows how much she values her. What? Su Qianru froze. She wasn't the only student taught by teacher Li. Who shared her glory? What happened? Didn't it say that CC only hired me this season? Su Qianru walked to the office next door and knocked on the door. At this time, the office door slowly opened. Zhuxi looked at Su Qianru with clear eyes. Su Qianru, you are here. I thought you were coming in the afternoon. Su Qianru's eyes widened suddenly. It was Zhuxi. Zhuxi, how could it be you? Yesterday she said that she was going to enter CC, but everyone treated it as a joke and didn't take it seriously at all. Now Zhuxi has actually entered CC. Zhuxi also became a CC perfumer. She was introduced by King, Li Yao answered. Su Qianru looked at Zhuxi in shock, her eyes uncertain. Zhuxi was actually arranged by King? How can it be? No one has ever seen King, not even the perfume director Li Yao. King only exists in legends. How could a clown girl from the countryside like her have the ability to see King? Does Zhuxi know the real King? No, King is so mysterious she may not have really seen him. Zhuxi, I never heard you mention that you can make perfume. No wonder you quit your job as a maid. It turns out it was because of CC that came. A maid? Now cleaning staff are coming to steal our jobs? Doesn't CC have image requirements? What was King thinking recruiting such a person? Everyone gasped. The noise here attracted many colleagues and everyone started pointing fingers at Zhuxi. At this time, Special Assistant Chin came over. Special Assistant Chin was very capable and serious. What are you doing? Nothing to do, right? Do you want me to arrange something for you? It's over. It's Chin's special assistant. Get back to work quickly. Special Assistant Chin scolded them sternly. Special Assistant Chin is capable at work and likes and appreciates people with real talent. Special Assistant Chin glanced at Zhuxi. The girl's eyes were clear and bright, and her slender waist was straight. She was indeed arranged by King, because she is the king. Special Assistant Chin glanced at Zhuxi. The girl's eyes were clear and bright, and her slender waist was straight. Even with a scar on her face, she was still very likable. After get off work, Su Qianru pressed the button to answer the call, and Li Lan's excited voice came. Mom, she actually entered the CC and it was arranged by the king. Think carefully about whether she knows the king or not. How would I know? Compared to this, Mrs. Song said that Mr. Fu's mother is also in the country, and she will take you to meet her tomorrow night. Su Qianru's eyes lit up. Really, Mom? Madame Fu is also in the country? Then I'll prepare well. Su Qianru's heart was pounding and she was extremely excited. This was great. She would have the chance to meet Mrs. Fu. I don't know what Mrs. Fu looks like. Isn't that the woman from last time? After hanging up, Su Qianru put her phone back into her bag. At that time, she saw the woman she saw yesterday. Madam, do you remember me? I am Su Qianru. We met last time. Su Qianru glanced at Mrs. Fu, and when she greeted Mrs. Fu just didn't answer. Mrs. Fu ignored her. Mrs. Fu came to pick up her daughter-in-law from get off work. Suddenly, Mrs. Fu's eyes lit up. Zhuxi got off work. She carried her bag and walked out of the CC gate. Come on, Cece, I've prepared a gift for you on your first day at work. Su Qianru snorted in her heart. Look, it's specially for you. Do you like it? Zhuxi took a quick look and saw a flamboyant red Ferrari sports car parked quietly on the side of the road. The luxurious sports car, which exuded the smell of money, had attracted the attention of everyone along the way. No, it's too expensive. I can't have it. Zhuxi's forehead twitched inexplicably. Zhuxi didn't expect that Mrs. Fu would really come to pick her up after get off work and gave her such an expensive car. She would be so embarrassed when Fu Nancheng knew about this. At this time, Mrs. Fu ran over happily and stuffed a car key into Zhuxi's little hand. Su Qianru also saw it. Her pupils shrank and she couldn't believe what she saw. A Ferrari sports car that is more advanced and more powerful than hers. Zhuxi was pushed to the Ferrari sports car by Mrs. Fu. What's impossible? Take it. If others have it, my Cece must have it too. Let's go and find my son. Zhuxi nodded. Okay, I'll take you there. Su Qianru was shocked. She even suspected that the Ferrari sports car was a high imitation. The Ferrari sports car drove out, and Mrs. Fu, who was sitting in the passenger seat. Why is she always the one who ruins my business? I have to find a way to get her out of here. Fu's company, VIP conference room, Mr. Smith, important partner of Fu Group. Fu Nancheng and Mr. Smith were standing in front of the French window discussing cooperation. Fu Nancheng is going to discuss a very important project today. Mr. Smith from abroad is flying to Fu's company and both parties are going to sign a contract. At this time, Secretary Song hurried in and came to Fu Nancheng's side. Fu Nancheng said sorry to Mr. Smith and Mr. Smith made a please gesture. Secretary Song then stepped forward and whispered in his ear, "CO, it's bad. Miss Su and the madam were in a car accident." Fu Nancheng immediately came to Mr. Smith and whispered, "Mr. Smith, excuse me, I have to leave for a moment. What is it that Mr. Fu needs to handle personally?" "Someone's in trouble and I have to make sure she's okay." Today, Fu Nancheng was wearing a silver-gray suit looking noble and cold. His high-class coldness, which was like a black-and-white blockbuster, satisfied all your imaginations of a domineering president. Zhuxi and Mrs. Fu got out of the sports car and stood on the side of the road. With a bang, the newly bought Ferrari hit the guardrail, sparks flying. "It's over, I'm in trouble." Zhuxi looked at Madame Fu, and Madame Fu was also looking at her. Both of them were still in shock. "Don't be afraid, Cece, Nancheng will come soon." He is the one I'm afraid of." Not long after Nancheng came, he opened his long legs, ran, then walked straight towards them with sharp and loud steps and stopped in front of the two of them. Fu Nancheng's handsome eyebrows twitched. He knew that his mother had always been frugal. She rarely spent even 1.2 million, let alone 12 million. In fact, the descendants of the Fu family are very low-key and simple. For example, Fu Ying has always concealed her identity as the daughter of the Fu family and lived an ordinary life. Fu Nancheng was silent for a few seconds. It seems nothing is wrong. He pursed his lips and asked in a deep and unhappy voice, "Who drives the car?" Zhuxi looked at Madame Fu. Madame Fu silently took a step back and stretched out her hand to push Zhuxi forward. "Son, it's none of my fault. It was all Cece's fault." Being pushed like this, her slender body rushed forward and directly into Fu Nancheng's arms. Zhuxi's palm-sized, fair face bumped straight into his arms, touching his clear, cold, and hard masculine aura, and her face suddenly turned red. The man was still furious. He grabbed her slender arm with his cold white fingers and lifted her out of his arms. "Stand still!" Zhuxi lowered her head in dismay. He stood in front of her with his tall stature and long legs and started scolding her like he was scolding a child. Fu Nancheng looked at her. "Do you know how precious my time is? I just came down from a high-level meeting." As he said this, he glanced at the Ferrari sports car that had a big bulge on it. "Do you know how much this series of sports cars weigh? This sports car with front and rear drive is not suitable for girls to drive. You only know to buy the expensive ones." Zhuxi felt that everyone on the street was looking at her and they were covering their mouths and laughing, making fun of her. She raised her beautiful clear eyes and stared at him bravely and brightly. Zhuxi said unconvincedly, You talk back again." Seeing his frighteningly serious gaze, Zhuxi didn't dare to say anything, but she snorted and turned away. This was her last act of stubbornness. Passers-by came in groups of 2 or 3 to cast envious glances. "Wow, look, the domineering boss and his little wife in the novel have come true. Stop talking, I'm so jealous." Seeing that the situation was not good, Mrs. Fu wanted to escape. "Well, Cece, remember to come to my house for the party tomorrow. I want to introduce you to you. Mom has something else to do, so I'll leave first." Zhuxi looked at Madame Fu. "Where is Mrs. Fu, who just said she would stand in front of her to protect her?" "My meeting isn't over yet. Please come back to the company with me first. I'll take you back later." Fu Nancheng stretched out his long legs, pulled Zhuxi's hand, and walked towards his Rolls-Royce Phantom. Zhuxi followed him obediently. Fu Nancheng's office. Fu Nancheng did not send Zhuxi home, but took Zhuxi directly back to the company, and he went to the meeting again. Zhuxi was sitting alone in the huge president's office. Zhuxi quickly came back to her senses. "No, wait. Why should I wait for him here? Why don't I just take a taxi home?" She was about to leave when a beautiful figure entered. Zhuxi looked up and found that it was Fu Nancheng's female secretary, the one he saw in the video chat when he was on a business trip that day. The female secretary's name is Wang Mani. Wang Mani was stunned when she saw Zhuxi because the president had never brought a woman into his office. This was the first time. "Hello, I'm Wang Mani, the CEO's personal secretary. Who are you?" "Hello, my last name is Su," Zhuxi answered calmly. Wang Mani raised her red lips and introduced herself confidently, looking Zhuxi up and down. I'm here to deliver clothes to the CEO. This suit has just been ironed. Wang Mani held Fu Nancheng's suit in her arms. Zhuxi reached out to take it. Let me do it. Wang Mani avoided it and didn't let Zhuxi touch the suit. Miss Su, you'd better not touch it with your hands. The president's clothes are all custom-made and very expensive. You will dirty the CEO's clothes. Zhuxi's hand froze in midair. There are many women who want to get close to our CEO, but this is the first time I've seen someone like you. Miss Su, it is important for people to know themselves. Do you understand what I mean? Zhuxi slowly took her hand back and sat down casually. She looked at Wang Mani and smiled calmly. Instead of wasting time on me, you might as well spend more time with your CEO. At this time, Zhuxi looked her up and down and said, you have the ambition to be a boss's wife, but it's a pity that you have only become a secretary now. Go out and pour me a cup of coffee. Thank you, Secretary Wang. Zhuxi emphasized the last 3 words, Secretary Wang. Wang Mani's face changed. She didn't expect that this clown girl from the country could be so sharp-tongued. Wang Mani was completely defeated. Her face turned pale and she turned away angrily. Preview next chapter. At this time, Fu Nancheng reached out and pinched her small chin, forcing her to look up at him. Zhuxi, stay with me for half a year. What? These words exploded in Zhuxi's ears and she suddenly looked up at him. Her skin was as white as a newborn baby's and the layer of fine hair on it was crystal clear, crisp and fragile, making her look clean and young. Fu Nancheng looked at her red lips that had just been bitten. Didn't you understand? I want you to stay with me for half a year and continue to play the role of my Mrs. Fu. In half a year, I will slowly deal with my mother. Is he letting her continue to be a substitute? I don't want it. She refused on the spot.